Oh, Jenny, so yeah, we're still waiting for the speeches. It's passionately late, but it's okay. We've already had one arrest over there. We're going to find out later what happened exactly with the guy who was taking over the police, what he said and what they're going to do with him. But now we're going to focus on speeches.
Oh yeah, you know the Saturday might kick off. I mean, lost. Oh yeah, by the way, I got an interview with Heath Ashley, the guy who's I was with him for like 40 minutes, and we got like special access. He was talking about the way I was literally filming it.
No way.
My time's down at Friday. And they all got Saturday. And then luckily, the whole thing, it was so unpredictable, but basically I got the full 3-minute video on my YouTube channel. It's called Another Alternative. Yes. It started with this, so the police were like blocking the area first, and then they left, and then that gave the Palestinians the opportunity to go check the video, put the link in.
Say the name of the channel again.
The name is called Another Alternative. So it's a video of the full 3-minute thing that the mainstream media have stolen. No surprise, they still intend to turn this footage, but yeah, so feel free to go check it out, guys. Thanks so much. Okay, we're now broadcasting live at New Scotland Yard. Welcome to the channel. Remember to hit that big red subscribe button and also click the bell icon. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are with broadcasting live at the protest. Thank you so much, guys.
Than the previous, the other protest.
Excuse me, Jan, sorry. Thank you.
No, I thought it was Michael Falter.
Welcome onto the live stream, guys. Hope you're doing well. We're now broadcasting live. We got my 2C there.
Oh no! All the Jewish jokes.
You have to wait for the Christian event, that'll be colossal. Sorry?
You're getting a signal.
Okay, so the waters will soon descend.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen earlier, guys, but basically Vahid Beheshti was the guy I interviewed. So I got a video of that, and if you want to watch it, feel free.
It was very posh. Really? And then you came in and said hello. Yellow. Oh yeah. That's the only colour. You haven't even had a drink. I was going to say.
Just a bit of a crowd size.
Still waiting for the speeches, guys.
That's good. You might hold me.
It was me, thinking I was going to be so late to this.
I managed to get good internet connection.
Because otherwise, you know, there's another 150,000 Muslims going to demonstrate.
Scotland Yard, the new Scotland Yard. There we go. We're starting, guys.
Friends, thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to start off with a thank you. And the thank you goes to the police who are here this evening looking after us. You know, coming from the Jewish community, we know all too well the importance of the protection afforded to us by the police day in, day out, the frontline officers who work extremely hard, putting themselves in harm's way, looking after us all of the way through to the counter-terrorism officers. And it's a very sad thing. It's a very sad thing that in 2023 in London, it is still so necessary to have the protection of the police for the Jewish community. It is a sad thing that we need security and policing at our schools, at our synagogues, at our community centres, and even at an event like this right in front of New Scotland Yard. I want to be very, very clear from the outset. This is in no way, shape or form a demonstration against the police. It is nothing of the sort.
Absolutely.
So thank you to the police. Friends, I'm Gideon. I'm Chief Executive of Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Over the last couple of weeks, and particularly embarrassment to the proud reputation but of Londoners. I want us each to think how we felt watching people course through the capital of our country, our home, London, waving the flags of terrorist organizations, people with placards saying things like, "I fully support Hamas," another placard with a Star of David placed in the bin, and the caption, "Keep the world clean." People marching under the banners that say, quote, "Muslim armies," calling for jihad. How did that make us feel? The thing that was most terrible about it was not just that it happened, but that our Metropolitan Police looked at so many criminal offences that were taking place and told us that they were not criminal offences at all. In fact, as these things happened, the Metropolitan Police took to social media. By the way, whoever's doing audio, I want a better one. Let's try this one. The terrible thing is not just that this happened, but that as it happened, the Metropolitan Police Service took to social media. And on social media, they told us that the criminal offences that we were witnessing, videos that were circulating, were not criminal offences at all. We watched as a man waved a black flag with an Arabic inscription and shouted, and we were told on social media by the Met that the man was not committing an offence because it turned out the thing that he was shouting was, "May Allah's curses be upon the infidels, may Allah's curses be upon the Jews." And we watched as people calling for jihad were interpreted by someone in the Metropolitan Police's social media department who decided to give us all a lesson on the meanings of jihad. It doesn't make us very safe. And all of this happens within a context. It happens within a context where we have just witnessed an atrocity, an anti-Semitic terrorist atrocity, on the scale not seen since the Holocaust. Over 1,000 people brutally murdered. Over 200 people taken hostage, including children. And so many people whose injuries we pray that they will recover from, but many, their lives will have been changed forever, and each day more succumb to the injuries that they suffered. And what happened on Saturday happened within a context here too. Because on Friday, the day before the protest, the Metropolitan Police took a step that we have never seen them take, which we believe is unprecedented, which is that before the demonstration, before the procession of these 100,000 people, the Met tweeted out, in complete contradiction to what the Home Secretary has said, that people calling the genocidal chant "From the river to the sea" would not necessarily be arrested. It sent a signal. Friends, the Metropolitan Police have responded to what happened on Saturday. And principal amongst their responses, we saw yesterday that Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, went out and told journalists that he needs additional legal powers in order to act. And you know what? He has a point. He has a point. For too long, the legislation in this country against extremism and terrorism has been lacking. The police do need additional powers. And there are groups that are not proscribed in this country but are proscribed in others, which makes it very hard for the police to operate against them. Section 1 of the Terrorism Act 2006 criminalizes the glorification of terrorism. Section 12 of the Terrorism Act 2000 criminalizes support for a proscribed terrorist organization like Hamas. Something that I'm pleased to say that the BBC is finally starting to get a handle on. And the Metropolitan Police, like all police forces, have a raft of public order offences that they can use. Everything from racially or religiously aggravated harassment, alarm and distress, through to incitement to racial or religious hatred. These are serious offences. They can result in immediate arrests, and they must. We ask the Metropolitan Police, please, make arrests, not excuses.
Make arrests! Make arrests!
We don't ask for any special treatment, we simply ask, Metropolitan Police, please uphold the law. You know, it's a very sad thing that we have to be here tonight, because I think most of us are used to, in our interactions with the police, saying two words: thank you. Every time we leave synagogue, thank you. When we leave our schools, thank you. When we leave our community centres, thank you. And the fact that we are calling for the law to be upheld and there is someone out there shouting at us just shows the true nature of the people who commit these acts, these people on these marches. So many of them harbour a hatred that is hard to understand, but which they are so proud to display. Shame on them. And thank you to those officers who have so swiftly taken action. Thank you. Friends, I'm very pleased to introduce a number of great speakers this evening. The first one is somebody who will be familiar to many of you. He is an Israeli author, activist, senior fellow of the Tel Aviv Institute, and many of you will have seen something that he may mention. A terrible thing that happened when he went to speak at UCL a number of years ago, something that resulted in a massive investigation and was part of exposing what happens on our campuses. Friends, I'm delighted to introduce Ken Mazig.
Thank you, Gideon. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I remember waking up on October 7 and getting messages from my mother, from my brother, and the push notifications, and I just knew something horrific happened. But as the day went by, I realized how bad it really was. And I remember watching the videos and watching the information coming in, and I knew that it was just the beginning. My brother was calling me from Israel, and he said, I feel so unsafe, I'm worried, maybe we have to come to London. And I said, I don't know if you'd be safe here either. I saw the information coming on social media, and with the sympathy that we got from the world, I also saw a lot of anti-Semitism rising. Because every time a war starts in Israel, we know that Jews around the world will pay that price. And it shouldn't be like this. And for the next 2 weeks, I dedicated every second that I have to tweet, to post, to share the truth. All of you did. And I remember that Saturday when the protest happened, and I saw those videos of people chanting for the ethnic cleansing of Jews in Israel, saw people waving this Al-Qaeda flag, and when I tweeted the Al-Qaeda flag, the Met Police, instead of looking into it, shared my tweet and basically targeted me, and I got the most horrific harassment on social media I've ever seen. I had to make a complaint with the Met Police against the Met Police social media. I'm here to tell you that today I don't feel as safe as I did before it all started, and I'm sure all of you do the same. And it shouldn't be like this. Jews should not be ashamed to demand to be treated with dignity. Jews should not be ashamed to demand to be treated with safety. Jews should not be ashamed to demand that we have some goddamn justice. I want to thank you, and I want to remind you that throughout history, we always survive, we always thrive, and Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chen. I'm extremely pleased now. He's literally rushed here and just arrived all of the way from Birmingham, especially to speak. When we all looked on during the years of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party, there was one person who immediately rose to the defense of the Jewish people, and he was joined by many others. Ian Austin, an MP at the time, I think for 14 years, for his hometown of Dudley, resigned from the Labour Party and was one of the first people to call out anti-Semitism where he saw it. Friends, I'm extremely proud to welcome a true friend of the Jewish community, Lord Ian Austin.
Thank you very much. You know, the truth is that, I mean, it's very kind, his words to me, but there were many more than one person standing up for the Jewish community when Jeremy Corbyn was in charge of the Labour Party. But look, friends, colleagues, the first thing I want to do today is pay my tribute to the victims of the barbaric attacks a fortnight ago. In 2017, I visited Nir Oz, one of the small kibbutzim attacked by Hamas. And the survivors estimate that between a quarter and a third of the 350 residents were killed or kidnapped. Defenceless families tied together and burnt to death, babies beheaded, young women raped, old ladies, Holocaust survivors kidnapped, youngsters slaughtered at a music festival. It would be the equivalent of 2,000 British youngsters killed at Glastonbury. What sort of response would the British people demand?
Yeah.
More rockets aimed at a fortnight in Israel than the whole of the UK in the Blitz. More Jewish people killed on a single day than any other day since the Holocaust. This is not, as Hamas claim, self-defense. It is brutal terrorism, plain and simple, just the same as ISIS. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know there are people here this evening who had relatives murdered in Israel a fortnight ago. And I want to express my condolences to them. My condolences to them, and pay my respects to all of the victims. You know, I could never understand Holocaust denial. I could never understand this. But over the past fortnight, social media are awash with claims. People saying that the survivors are lying, claiming babies weren't actually killed, even saying that Israel killed its own citizens. Utterly disgusting. The modern equivalent of Holocaust denial. Now, the second thing I want to do is offer my prayers for the safe return of the hostages and the Israeli soldiers who are going to have to go into Gaza to rescue them and deal with Hamas. And the third thing is to say to the Jewish community assembled here this evening, we stand with you in total solidarity and complete support. Now, I want to thank Gideon and the whole of the CAA team, almost all of them volunteers, not just for inviting me to speak this evening. It's a great privilege, but not just for that. I want to thank you, Gideon, and your team for the work you do all year round. And I want to thank all of you for supporting the CAA. Their work, your support, never more important than it is today. Never more important. Now, I promise I'll do everything I can to stand up in Parliament and in the media, to speak up for the Jewish community, to defend the Middle East's only democracy, the world's only Jewish state, and its right to defend itself. And I promise you this as well, we're going to campaign against Iran, we're going to campaign against the Iranian dictatorship, the terrorism it sponsors across the region, and we're going to demand the complete proscription of the IRGC. Now, let's be clear about this. The terrible condition of people in Gaza cannot be laid at Israel's door. It cannot. When Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005, it had a vibrant economy, open borders, control over imports and exports, plans for a seaport, and discussions for an airport. In came Hamas, funded by Iran, launched a coup, banned elections, executed its rivals, and used the Gaza Strip as a base to attack Israel. Israel was forced to defend itself with border posts, with fences and walls, not, as Israel's detractors claim, a blockade, but as a defence. Now, according to the United Nations, and we all know this is true, Hamas stores its rockets in schools, hospitals and residential buildings. Where Israel uses its weapons to protect its people, Hamas use the people to protect the weapons. Now, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the next few weeks will be awful. War always is. Innocent people always pay the price. But isn't it absolutely clear that Israel has no choice but to defend its people? And I tell you this, I've talked to British Army officers about this. There is no army in the world that takes as much care to protect civilian life than the IDF. I want to read to you what General Mickey Edelstein said yesterday. He said this: they killed civilians to evacuate northern Gaza. Yes, we go in, and there are civilian casualties, but we are not looking for kids to kill. We are not looking to kill hostages because they are not walking fast enough. We do not find kids and then force them to go and ask their neighbours to come out, and then when they do, kill them. And this is in a democratic country, minimise civilian casualties. Hamas aim to kill as many civilians as they can. That is the difference. Now, I'm afraid, and we all know this is true, disgracefully, we're seeing an increase in anti-Semitic incidents here in the UK, and this is why the CAA, the CST, have never been more needed. Since the attacks, more anti-Semitic incidents recorded in a fortnight than in any other fortnight on record. Restaurants vandalised, Jewish students reporting racial abuse, schools closed. It's very important every single racist incident reported to the CAA team, the CST and the police. We've also seen, and let's be honest about this, disgraceful support for terrorism at marches, in speeches and on social media. Last week in London, a rally organised by the racist extremist Hizb ut-Tahrir to liberate people in the concentration camp. The concentration camp called Palestine. In response, several men in the crowd shouted, "Jihad, jihad, jihad." Does anybody think for a minute they were using that word to mean some sort of spiritual inner struggle? In that context, it is obviously a call to wage war on Israel, on Jewish people. We all know that. And when they chant from the river to the sea, we all know as well, this isn't a call for two states living in peace side by side. Hearing that, we all know it is quite clearly a call for the eradication of Israel. That's what it is. Now, hearing these chants on the streets of London is completely unacceptable. Incitement must be dealt with. It's obviously difficult for 1,000 police to deal with 100,000 people on a demonstration. And I do want to say this, I do want to be fair. The new commissioner, and I know this is true, the new commissioner is a good guy. I know he takes these issues seriously, and I know he wants to sort them out. The last thing we need is a row between the Met and ministers. So if there are gaps in the law, we have the King's Speech coming up, and the government must give the police any powers they need to deal with this. Now, in conclusion, let me say this. Israel must eliminate the terror threat posed by Hamas. Hamas must be removed from power. Hamas must release immediately all the hostages. No conditions, no conditions, no conditions. Bring them home, bring them home, bring them home, bring them home, bring them home. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the Jewish community in Britain must be protected, and those who commit hate crimes and express support for Hamas proscribed. The final thing I just want to say is this. Please do not underestimate the support for the Jewish community, and in fact for Israel, amongst ordinary, decent British people. The majority of people from all communities are decent and reasonable, and they're just as appalled by terrorism and extremism and racism as the... I want to thank you for everything you do to stand up for Israel, to stand up for the Jewish community and for community relations in our country. And finally, and please forgive my terrible pronunciation, but I just want to say this. Am Israel High. Let's all say it. Let's all say it together. Am Israel High. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian Austin. Thank you. What an incredible speaker. And what an incredible friend of the Jewish community. You know, Ian makes a very good point. If you're a few thousand officers policing a march of 100,000, you're in a very scary position in certain situations. It's not easy. We're not pretending it is. And here to talk to you about some of the work that Campaign Against Anti-Semitism does is in its investigations and its enforcement, is somebody who's been volunteering his time, giving his time freely to CAA for 8 years. I'm very pleased to welcome up my friend and our Director of Investigations and Enforcement, Stephen Silverman.
Good evening. It is wonderful to see you all here this evening. It is just a shame that it is necessary. I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about my story. As Gideon says, I've been volunteering with CAA for 8 years. Because I am retired, although I know you'd never guess to look at me, I'm able to make it pretty much a full-time job. I'm fortunate in that way. And I consider the past 8 years to be the most important 8 years of my life. But I find it hard to believe that we are here. I grew up into my adulthood and late adulthood believing that anti-Semitism was not something that British Jews would really have to worry about at any significant level. When my parents used to talk about changing their name to something that sounded less Jewish, when they used to be worried about the Shabbat candles being seen from the street, I used to laugh at them. I used to tell them, don't be silly, it's in the past. When my children were old enough to learn a bit about Jewish history, when they learned about the Holocaust, I told them, you need to learn about this, but don't worry, you're not going to have a problem in this country in the future. I joined in 2015 because something changed in 2014. You may all remember there was another outbreak of hostilities between Israel and Hamas. And anti-Semitism spilled out onto our streets. And it felt as though something had changed, that there was a permanent change of some sort. And it was at that point that I decided that for the first time in my life, I needed to become an activist. I felt it deeply. And I found Gideon by chance, and I knew that this was the man I wanted to align myself and fight this fight with. And as I say, in 2014, I felt I never thought it could be this bad. Then we had the years of Jeremy Corbyn. And as that progressed, I remember thinking, this is even worse than I expected. You'll recall that many Jews were having conversations about having to leave the country had there been a Labour victory in 2019. I thought, it's unbelievable. This is even worse than I thought it was when I joined in 2014. And here we are today, and I cannot find the words to describe where we are. If anyone had ever told me that we would be feeling like this as a community in the UK of all places, I would have laughed at them. Because Jewish identity is being attacked on all sides. It doesn't matter if you're a religious Jew. It doesn't matter if you're a Jew by race. It doesn't matter if the cultural aspects of Judaism are what appeals to you. It doesn't matter if your Judaism is defined by knowing about the persecution the Jewish people have suffered for so long. It doesn't matter if your Jewish identity is defined by an affinity with the land of Israel. Every single aspect of that is under attack right now. Just bear with me 1 second. Now there is a piece of audio that has been circulating on social media over the last 48 hours. Some or all of you might have heard it. It is the voice of a young Hamas terrorist using the phone of one of his victims to call his parents. He is in a state of absolute ecstasy at the horrors that he has just unleashed. He says, "Your son just killed Jews, Dad. Dad, I'm calling you from the phone of a Jew. I just killed her and her husband. he becomes even more frenzied. Dad, I killed 10 with my hands. What happened in southern Israel on the 7th of October was not just an atrocity inflicted on his innocent Israeli civilians. It was a depraved pogrom carried out against Jews for the crime of being Jews. The police should therefore be in no doubt whatsoever that when an extremist mob in the aftermath of a terrorist attack calls for jihad on the streets of our capital city, it is British Jews who are threatened.
Yeah.
That when someone displays a sign saying, "I fully support Hamas," it is British Jews who are threatened. And that when an intifada is demanded, it is British Jews who are threatened.
Arrest them.
CAA operates an incident response service through which the public can get our help, including free legal advice on anti-Semitism that they have witnessed or that they have experienced directly. The volume of phone calls and messages coming into the service in the last 2.5 weeks is unprecedented. We have had to mobilize significant numbers of new volunteers just to ensure that we are able to provide assistance to the members of the Jewish community and to our allies who need it. Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Police reported a 1,353% increase in anti-Semitic hate crime during the same period. So it beggars belief that while they can see the extent to which danger to British Jews is rising, they are simultaneously justifying their failure to enforce the law by sanitizing some of the extremist chants heard on our streets, and even, it is sad to say, by what appears to be gaslighting us as to the meaning of others. The concern of the Jewish community in London that it cannot rely on the police for protection when it matters most predates recent events. It has, sadly, in May 2021, during the last outbreak of hostilities between Israel and Hamas, the police stood by and did nothing as a Free Palestine convoy of cars, which we had warned them about in advance, drove through North London cursing Jews and calling for their daughters to be raped.
That's the only thing I found.
During the same weekend, the police were filmed walking alongside a mob shouting, "We'll find some Jews, we want the Zionists, we want their blood." Those officers chose to take no action. Then during Hanukkah that year, another mob assaulted young Jews who were celebrating the holiday in Oxford Street. It was captured on video. To this day, there have been no arrests. Which brings us to the anti-Semitic extremism we have seen in London over the last 2 weeks. Jews have known for a long time what "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" means. We saw on the 7th of October what it looks like in practice. Yet before last weekend's rally, as Gideon has already mentioned, the Met issued a statement in which it equivocated about its interpretation and gave it a free pass because it would not be heard. I'd like to ask the Commissioner, what do you think that chant means when it comes from people wearing images of paragliders? Would you allow racist chants about black people to be heard on the streets of our capital city if you were told they would only do so in supposedly white neighborhoods? We were told that the word jihad has multiple meanings, some of which are benign. I'm sorry, no, Commissioner. Not when jihad is being called for by an extremist group that has been prescribed in other countries under banners calling for action by, quote, Muslim armies. Do you think they are summoning these Muslim armies to join them for a period of quiet meditation and inner reflection? And then, in the middle of all this prevarication and inaction, after being attacked by a hostile crowd, CAA's van displaying images of those being held hostage by a prescribed terrorist group is shut down and told to get out of central London for fear of causing a breach of the peace. Under these circumstances, it is not unreasonable for us to ask if the Met fears that if it takes the action it could and should take, it might not be able to control events if the situation escalates. And if that is the case, what is the government going to do to reinforce the Met to ensure that Jews can be adequately protected? We are entitled to ask, where is the deterrence? The Met's failure to act and the excuses it has offered for that failure will only have served to embolden those who harbour ill will towards Jews. It will have reinforced their belief that they can act with impunity. The coming weekend's demonstration will no doubt tell us exactly how much damage has been done. It is clear that there are public order and other offences that could have been used as grounds to make arrests last weekend. The failure to apply them cannot happen again this Saturday and in the days and weeks that follow.
They're scared! Scared! Scared of them.
Now, to the Jews amongst us, and I know we have allies with us as well, it is very easy to feel alone and that we are fighting this fight on our own, but we are not. We have allies. And what I would like to do now is introduce one of our new friends, Tim Gutman from Christians Against Anti-Semitism.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So we're from Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism. We put an extra A in there because of an amazing organisation that's got the CAA, that's the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. So we call ourselves Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism. It's an honour to stand with you tonight, and it's as Christians, we want you to know in the Jewish community, you're not alone, as was said. We want you to know we stand with you, we support you, we always will. And this is why our organisation exists. And we advocate for unity between Christians and the Jewish community in the fight against anti-Semitism, because it's all of our fight. Like all of you, we were shocked, distraught and sickened after what happened on October the 7th. And our shock and our pain, it turned into incense, being incensed at hours and days after there was mobs chanting in the street, holding flags and banners and celebrating with that genocidal chant. We were incensed. So we decided we need to do something. And in our organisation we wanted to organise, and this is our story, we wanted to organise an event to show you, the Jewish community, to show Israel as well. There are Christians that stand with you, that support you, that are in solidarity with you, and we always will. So here's my story. Here's our story. We decided, in desperation for the Jewish community to know that they're not alone, after speaking to so many of our Jewish friends who felt isolated. In desperation, we organised to stand outside the Israeli embassy, to hold flags, Israeli flags, to hold banners that proclaim Christians stand with you, Christians stand with the Jewish community, and Christians always will. We organised this, and we arranged with the police, and we arranged the time, and we made all preparations to make sure it was safe, and we informed the police our gathering is a peaceful gathering. We're not protesting against anything, actually. We're standing with and standing for the Jewish community and Israel, and that's all we wanted to do. As Christians, we wanted to say some prayers, we wanted to sing some songs, we wanted to teach some Christians the Hatikvah. We wanted to do all of this, but it was peaceful. Days later, we had a phone call from the police liaison officer, and he informed us that another anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian march had been announced. This was days after ours was organised. And the policeman informed us that there was a danger to the people who come to our event. And they strongly advised us to cancel our event because they said, because we were told youths often go to the Israeli embassy and cause trouble. We were shocked, actually, because we felt that actually we should have been protected. You must understand, we have Christians that come from all over the country. We have all kinds of people, a mix of people, and we have to protect them. But I don't understand why we couldn't go ahead with our rally when ours was organised first. But to protect the wonderful people that do show up at our events, and speaking to some of our friends in the Jewish community, we decided it would be a nice gesture, or we were told it would be a nice gesture if we make our way as a group to Golders Green, that very place where they put graffiti of Free Palestine, that genocidal statement on a bridge, where they smashed a restaurant. We decided we want to go there and show solidarity with the Jewish community then, when anti-Semitism was sickeningly increasing all the time. So we said to the police, we informed them again, all we want to do is peacefully and quietly, no chanting, we don't want to cause any alarm, just quietly walk through the area, carrying our banners of love and support, carrying our Israeli and British flags, make our way through Golders Green and Finchley to Hendon, where we were going to have a rally and we were going to show support, have some speakers, and just to let the Jewish community know we stand with you. That was on the Tuesday. We announced that we're doing that. And on the Thursday, early Thursday morning, I had missed calls. It was the police again. We were told that our event was being shared widely amongst the Christians, and apparently one tweet had been like 30,000 times encouraging people to come. It was unprecedented support for us, but I want you to know there are Christians all around this country that stand with you, and they wanted to do something about it. But the policeman told us that another tweet had been found, and it said something along the lines of, brothers, we need to go to Golders Green after our march to teach these Zionists a lesson, something along those lines. And so the police again told us, they strongly advised us, because our people are in danger and there is a threat to their safety and injury, and they advised us again, you must cancel your event. They didn't tell us they can't do that, but they advised us that we would not be safe. So here's what I want to say. people ask me, we've had interviews with the media, how do we feel about this? How do we feel about the Met? And like many of you, and like Gideon said, we are grateful to the police for the work they do. And we have appreciated their protection in the past, but on this, I'm sorry, it felt like the other march was being favoritised, and it felt like we were being silenced. And actually, in the time since, I think our outrage and our questioning of it has turned to the genuine question is, why can't we be protected? Why in our country, this is a wake-up call actually, why in our country can't some peaceful Christians just walk around and just pray some prayers and just sow solidarity with the Jewish community when they're under attack? Why couldn't we do that? It's a very real question. Why couldn't we just do that? We're peaceful. And so, we have been encouraged by the response of Suella Braverman, Rishi Sunak, the things they've said in solidarity, and they came and they said anti-Semitism wouldn't be tolerated, but to rub salt in our wounds. On the Saturday we were supposed to show you, the Jewish community, we stand with you. There's placards and shouts of jihad and all of this other stuff going on the streets of London, and that hurt. That hurt. I would say for us it was extremely disappointing to see the response as well on social media by the police, particularly from that tweet as well from regarding that flag. And this despite the mandate to show zero tolerance. It's a wake-up call. As Christians, we say this to other Christians. History shows us that when the silent majority is silent, it almost gives permission for the wicked to be wicked. So now is not the time to stand on the fence. Now is not the time to be silent. We must make a noise. We must make a noise. And we must make it known that we stand with the Jewish community. We stand with Israel. History doesn't forget when people are silent and sit on the fence. And so I would join with you right now in saying, Metropolitan, please make arrests and not excuses. And just as I finish, I want to tell you this, I want to assure you this, we are regrouping, we will be back, we will have our event, we will let Britain, we will let the Jewish community, you guys that are here, we will let you know, and hopefully Israel knows that there are Christians in the United Kingdom that love, support and stand with you shoulder to shoulder in the battle against anti-Semitism. We will not be silenced and we will not be moved. As I finish, please join me. Yisrael High! Yisrael High! Yisrael High! Thank you very much.
Well, weren't those welcome words? You know, the stories that we've just heard, they're very familiar to me particularly, because many of you will know and will have seen the campaign against anti-Semitism organised vans with billboards on the side to drive around London showing the faces of the children kidnapped by Hamas. Children. And last week, I was about to leave the office when we got a call from one of our volunteers, shaken up, crying. And that volunteer was saying that they were riding with the billboard vans, they were there to take pictures of them passing various London landmarks like Big Ben just over there, in fact just in front of Big Ben over there, when protesters suddenly ran out into the road in front of them. And those protesters started shouting abuse at the vans, and then the police turned up and told them to switch off the billboards and clear out of central London. And I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it, so I had to go and see for myself. We sent the volunteers home in a couple of cabs. I went out again with the vans, and as we got into Parliament Square, following the same route around London, all of a sudden we were stopped by police. The police asked me to go over to the side of the road, to the pavement, which I did, because I've grown up listening to what the police tell you to do. And as soon as I was there, they held me there. They held me there on the pavement. They said it was too dangerous for me to cross back over to the road, whilst one of their senior officers gave instructions to the drivers of the vans. And the instructions were to turn off the billboards and get out of central London. And as I tried to get back to the vans again to hear the instructions that were being given, to actually have a conversation with the officer to understand on what legal basis this was being done, with no protesters this time in sight, empty streets on a wet night, the police held on to me and said it's not safe for you to cross the road, and only did they release me once the billboards had been switched off by the drivers. It's a very unsettling thing, a very disturbing thing, and it felt like a very lonely moment for me. But nothing prepared me for what we saw on Saturday. Friends, in a moment I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. I'm going to ask you to hold your placards high. There are some press photographers over to the right of Scotland Yard as you look at the building. So please do hold your placards high. If you've got something, the person with the flag, if you move ever so slightly to the side, just so people can see the placards and the rest of the crowd. Friends, we are here as friends of the police. We want the police to uphold the law. We are not asking for any kind of special treatment. We are simply asking that when people on our streets glorify terrorism, when they show support for banned terrorist organizations, when they commit public order offences, including incitement to racial hatred, we want those people to be arrested. So Metropolitan Police Service Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley, please make arrests, not excuses. Make arrests, not excuses. Make arrests, not excuses. Make arrests, not excuses. Enforce the law. Enforce the law. Enforce the law. Enforce the law. Act against hate before it's too late. 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 These people who break the law, who show support for terrorist organizations, extremists, they threaten all of society. And as Tim has just reminded us, anti-Semitism is not merely a Jewish problem. It is a societal problem. It is a problem that we must all face. There is an old saying that the Jews are the canaries in the coal mines of society. And the people who hate the Jews hate the whole of the society that we live in. And so I want to close by saying this to the Metropolitan Police. We are grateful. We are grateful for all of the years of protection, the hard work that goes in. But we cannot endure what is coming up on Saturday. Because on Saturday, yet another of these marches is planned. Another national march for Palestine is due to course through our streets. Are we supposed to sit here every single week, week after week, watching the law being flouted, avoiding the centre of town, watching people march through our town, march through our homes, calling for violence against us? And as the police have shown with what happened to Tim, with what happened to Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, when it is time to act, the police can act. We cannot possibly tolerate a situation
in which the desires of a law-breaking mob are prioritized over the rights of law-abiding citizens. We cannot tolerate it, and we will not tolerate it. This evening, just before coming here, Lawyers for Campaign Against Anti-Semitism wrote to the Commissioner, asking the Commissioner to use his rights, his powers, under Section 12 of the Public Order Act, to impose limitations on whatever processions pass through London this weekend. We do live in a free society. We live in a society in which we can demonstrate as we are doing right now. But there are limits. And we have asked the Commissioner to impose such limits. Limits on the number of people. Limits on the route. Limits on the timing. And most importantly, the kind of limits that will enable the police to uphold the law and make arrests, not excuses. Thank you very much for being here this evening, for coming out in our numbers. Apparently we're 1,000 strong. And we have been heard by the Metropolitan Police. And remember, as we go home, we say the two words that we always say to the police officers as we leave. Thank you.
You don't have to thank me, my goodness. We've got to be here. We've got to be heard. Wait, why is he here? What's he hiding?
Okay, just before we go, apparently there is someone very unwelcome in this crowd here. Apparently we're joined by the leader of the National Front. Get out! Get out! Get out of here! Racist scum off our streets! Racist scum off our streets!
Racist scum off our streets! Racist scum off our streets! Racist scum off our streets!
He ran off. He ran off. I saw him there.
He basically has confronted me several times because I've called out his people for attacking your people. He's tried to basically expose me on the internet as a riot. So I saw him and I just supported him again.
We saw him second time now.
Every 2 weeks he turns up.
So he's turned up, yeah.
It's not the first time, I've had him thrown out before. Thank you. Who's the National Front? Tony Martin, leader of the National Front.
Yeah, Morris.
Where he's run off.
He's run off. What direction?
He was coming over. I think he went that way. Went off. Yeah. It's Tony Martin. His name is Tony Martin. He's the leader of the National Front. Tony Martin. Tony Martin. You can Google him. Right. So I've had to report him again. He turns up every single time. I know it's Facebook side. I've had beef with him. So.
Maya. Yeah. How's it been? See ya.
With his clothing description, what has been said, if you said
He didn't know who you were shouting. No, he would prove his name. He
Has anyone on our side actually seen the photo or just seen him in the ground? No, so
I'm just going to wrap up my live stream. Yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up. Okay. We're now going to end live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the channel. If you remember to hit that big red subscribe button. We have just covered the Israeli protests. Stay tuned for more live streams like these in the future so you get notified when I go live or upload a new video. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you all guys on the next live stream. Thank you, everyone.